Alrighty, I finally have time to work on this now. This was sent to me by Work Knife Balance along with a freebie gift to the channel, which is awesome. I will be making some content with this CMB Made Knives Predator. I'll be doing a writ die job on the scales and giving it away to one of you lucky individuals. Not too sure how I'm going to go about that. I haven't had the best luck in the past with giveaways since my channel is so small. And I don't do any crazy live streams because, again, it is really small and I'm kind of short on time most of the time. But now that I have some time on my hands, I want to be able to actually put a good bit of focus into this and share my process. So I believe today the video will be available of me unboxing this Tactile Knife Co. Rockwall and the CMB Made Knives Predator. This one I wanted to put on the record that it did come with a butt ton of up and down play because of the design of the separated lock bar. It's an internal lock bar that has only one point of contact really to stabilize it, and I think that's one of the main flaws on why this thing has up and down play. So I did my best to adjust it without having to bring the bar over too far and actually ripping your thumb off to deploy it. But in doing so, it is a little bit stiffer, but it's still extremely snappy. And it's a personal thing. I'm not the biggest fan of this design overall, but of course this is not my knife. I'm just gonna be the one to modify it. So it already comes with a pattern on it, and I'm pretty sure this was electronically, like using, electricity versus torch to anodize. I forget the proper term, but anodizing through electricity in an electrolytic solution. That's what I do. I wouldn't say I specialize in it, that's for sure. I'm definitely a novice, but I've had a lot of people ask how I do my process. I've made happy mistakes like this. This is on my Devo Knives Buzz. So it's kind of a swirly two-tone look. This is a Assault Team Model 1, I believe it is. So I did the finish on the blade, a couple little other modifications. I freaking love that knife. I bench trained Bug Out, this freaking piece of shit. So I actually pulled it off of NAF sale because just nobody wanted to buy it, but I completely modified the crap out of it. Titanium, everything, all parts of this you could think of has been upgraded to titanium. And I had it up there for the longest time. Nobody wanted it because once you start anodizing things, it's hard to sell. Your window of opportunity shrinks down significantly because not everybody is going to love bronze or purples or blues or high voltage this, that, and the other. So it's a very nitpicky thing. That's why the custom world is so crazy, and it's actually kind of hard to get exactly what you want without spending a shit ton and possibly having to send back and then get things redone. But this is another example here. The hardware in the clip is how it came from the factory. I just did a light bronze ano on the scales, and it's a look that I like. That's what I wanted to achieve, and I got it good. This is the Kubi Vagrant, the titanium variation. This thing's pretty sick. I like it. Has pretty good action for the price, that's for sure. So we're gonna go ahead and flip around the camera and I'll show you guys this up close. I'll go through my typical process of basic PPE, my super primitive setup of how I have everything. There are multiple ways to achieve the same thing, so if there are any professional anodizers that end up seeing this video, know that I'm most definitely just a hobbyist, a novice. I'm not claiming to be professional by any means. This is just me sharing my process kind of as like a, I don't want to say like a vlog style, but just for record's sake, just for fun. I feel like somebody could actually learn something because I learned all that I know from watching other individuals that were willing to share. Not trying to hide anything. I don't do anything special. I don't have any super crazy fancy equipment. Everything that I have is probably able to be purchased from Amazon. So that's about it. So we're gonna go ahead and get into this thing. My first thing that I'm probably gonna end up doing is taking it apart, and I'll show you the thing that I'm not the biggest fan of design wise. Cleaning, of course, will be the next step. prepping all the solutions, the power supply, choosing the spectrum of color, and then we're actually going to be dipping the scales and the pivots, the pivot faces at least, because it's closed on this side and the axis is on the show side here. That's kind of how it's set up. So it is technically a captured pivot. It's just kind of done a little weird, but that's their design, of course. And there's some sanding involved. We're going to be dipping into some Winx rust remover, and it's going to eat away. I hope the Winx rust remover is still going to work because I've been using it a lot recently. It's almost as if it has a like a use time frame. It takes a while if you've been using the same solution over and over again. It doesn't act as fast as it did after, you know, chewing up another piece of titanium versus 10 pieces down the line. It's not as consistent and it takes a little bit longer, but we'll see. We'll see how everything comes out. So just stay tuned. Alrighty, so we are here down below. I'll be taking it apart. You're gonna need two different bits, a T8 for all the body and pivot, and then for the internal liner, it's attached with a little flat head. So no proprietary hardware, nothing super complicated or fancy. I have made sure to tuck my my necklace into my shirt so that it doesn't consistently tap on the freaking tripod, annoying the crap out of my viewers. I had I think I did an unboxing a couple weeks ago, and I had my necklace was just like dangling around and kept knocking into it. I didn't notice until it was already posted and someone made a comment. I do apologize for that. Alrighty, so I love their hardware that they use. Pretty good stuff, that's for sure. It gets, I wouldn't say stuck, but it feels very snug into bits, even though this one's a little bit on the worn side. Still very, very nice to be able to use those use that hardware. It's good stuff. Let's take that apart. So you're gonna see the internals of this knife are extremely simple. You may need another little tool, like a little multi-tool, little, what am I thinking of? Just some pliers. I have this thing right here, so we're gonna go ahead and that just pops right off. So we're gonna set that off to the side so it doesn't roll away and get lost. So there are no races or anything. It's just the ceramic bearings directly contacting the titanium. Not a big deal, but that's definitely something that I'm not, the biggest fan of. That's something that they could have done, but a lot of weight relief, definitely, and it feels very well finished on the inside. It looks good as well. They do have these kind of like milling swirls. For the price, for where it's coming from, being made in the US, I expect something a little bit cleaner, but it's all right for what it is. I'm not gonna crap on it too much. So the pivot, you can see right there, I cut in for the detent hole. So all be cleaned up. There's also a detent ramp. On a blade this thin, and the overall profile, that doesn't need to be there. It's just kind of weird. I'll be removing the studs separately since I kind of have to get like a little cloth and two different pliers to break it. Not actually break it, but you know what I mean, to actually separate it. Here the pivot comes out, and this face right here, it's titanium. I'm pretty sure, oh, you know what, no, I'm wrong. So the entire pivot is actually made out of a single piece. This is all titanium. So this will be cleaned. You can see there's a little flat spot right there, which kind of corresponds with that flat spot right there. And it becomes a captured pivot. Nice and simple, I like that. Wish it was on the other side just for overall cleanliness and design, since this is a design forward knife, not so much for like super crazy hardcore use or anything fancy like that. The way that they mount the pocket clip, it allows for a super clean look. Nothing is gonna get snagged, no screws or anything, but it makes it a little weird and a little tricky when it comes to actually reassembling it, because as you can see, to take this off, I kind of have to bend up and out a certain way. What I'm gonna do, and I hope I remember, I'm actually gonna put like a little piece of paper, or if I can find like a little piece of plastic to put underneath, because I do not want to scratch some fresh ass ano because of that clip. So I want this to go back to work knife balance as pristine as possible. And this pocket clip just fits into this piece right here. I believe this is steel, as well as the pocket clip. I have a magnet here that I can check the pieces just to make sure. So here, the pivot, titanium. The other scale, of course, you know, titanium. Hardware pieces, I'm pretty sure they're titanium. I will do further testing. The other pivot piece, yeah. Clip, steel. Backspace piece, I'm pretty sure that is titanium as well. I'm gonna go ahead and use my little flathead. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So here is the liner sticking out. That's how, you know, it interacts with the underside of the blade, the tang. That's the only, I guess, point of secureness and only like contact point. If you look down, that is sticking up further than the rest of this. It kind of like bows in a way. And I've noticed that I can kind of squeeze that down a little bit. And when I do, the whole thing kind of sticks up a little further. You kind of see like a little glint of that actual steel liner, and it looks nice and flat now. But what happens when you go to disengage it the first time, it kind of rocks it, and you could even hear a little click in the movement. I don't know if you can hear it. Let's see. Maybe. That little click, if you do hear it, that's actually the actual steel piece moving up from this end and kind of moving out of line. So huge design flaw there. There should have been multiple points of contact to get this thing seated perfectly. Like, I'm talking about flush. That's what I expect from a company that prides itself so much in machining. Here's this tiny ass little screw with like 3 little threads on it. So I'll make sure to keep that in a nice safe spot. Pretty sure that might also be titanium for all I know, because it's not sticking to my little magnet pad. And here's a liner. Of course, it's just steel. It has their little their stone wash and polish over it. Nothing fancy there. Little ceramic detent ball. From the looks of it, the lock face hasn't been altered or sanded, or like nothing really has changed from what a brand new one would be. So it's not so much like poor contact with the lock face, it's the actual contact points, the secure points of the actual lock itself. It's just, it's flawed. It really is. Here's this side, the milling. There's the date of this particular unit. So now what I'm gonna go do is move all that stuff out of the way, get off the magnet. I'm gonna go inside the house and clean up all these pieces and leave everything on a paper towel, or even submerged in water, just to keep any sort of dust debris off of this. And then we're gonna go and dip this into the wing stress remover to hopefully remove all the surface coloring and start, you know, a fresh blank. Alrighty, so everything is all nice and clean on a paper towel, just to transfer, not really drop anything. Here off to the side, I have just a couple little scrap pieces of titanium wire. I use this for hanging stuff in RIT dye solution, here in the wings rust remover for actually anodizing. Like, it's just a spool of wire that I use. But anyway, you want something to be able to actually, you know, take out the pieces that you're working, so you don't have to have like pliers or anything weird. So I'll loop the scales through one of these, and then for all the little pieces, I actually have a little, I suppose, strainer set up here at the very surface of the wings rust remover. And if I refer to this as ferrochloric acid, I'm sorry. Every once in a while, I do actually mix them up when I'm talking about, you know, corrosive liquids, but As you can see here, I'm just throwing everything in there, and it's going to be submerged, but not where it's going to sink all the way down at the bottom where I can't keep a close eye on it because I don't want too much being removed. So all those pieces are in. I can go ahead and just loop these pieces. There isn't any kind of like major rule when doing this, as long as everything is relatively clean. There are no surfaces that need to be protected. Everything here should be just fine. So I'm kind of locking it there, and then I'll make a bend so that way it just sits in there. One little rule I suppose is if you have pieces of titanium that have essentially perfectly flat surfaces, they'll kind of stick together and create a seal. The wings rust remover won't have the best time getting in between them, so giving it a little shake every once in a while to kind of split these pieces apart while they are submerged in the solution, it's a good idea. Or you can manipulate your hook to let them have a little bit of room to kind of move around. It's kind of weird manipulating this wire because it's stiff and eventually it does become brittle. It's kind of annoying, but it's not too bad to work with. I'm just trying to something like this where the parts won't be kind of like pushed together. That way they can actually have some room to split. Even having a little bit of water tension between the two kind of creates a little seal. You gotta pry them apart there. So as long as they go in and they sit there for a little while, that's really just the goal. So it's gonna take a second for this to work, seeing as this is older solution. You can dilute it or use it straight. It doesn't matter as long as you keep a close eye on it and you've removed all that you need to remove. Of course, we're just going to be chewing away at the surface finish, just the coloring, the pattern that was done previously by whoever modified it. And in this time, while I'm keeping a close eye on all the pieces, I'm going to take a look at a couple different anodizing charts of different colors. Of course, the grade of titanium does matter. The finish of the titanium also makes a huge difference in what kind of colors you can achieve. So there is going to be sanding most likely in the beginning through the end of this process, and that's going to change up the kind of spectrum of color that we get to mess around with. But I'm gonna go ahead and see what might look good on this, because this is the golf wall pattern. The idea is I'm going to sand it, anodize it one color, sand it again, anodize it a different color. That way the actual the little divots, the golf wall pattern actually is left alone, and there will be a secondary anodization color giving it some dimension. So that's just a visual thing I'm trying to achieve. I'm not trying to do any sort of color gradient because I haven't had the most practice on that, and I don't want to go and refinish this project multiple times as I've done in my personal collection. Some of the stuff you guys see on my social media accounts, you guys don't get to see a lot of the times where I make, shit work, essentially, where things just don't come out right. You guys only really get to see the good stuff. Why? Because I don't want you guys, and it's not really important for you guys to see the bad stuff, but it does happen, and you absolutely need practice when doing this. So that's going to be one of the main focuses on a lot of my modification videos, is that you need practice. Just because I give you every single little step to how I do everything and you have your exact same setup exactly how I do, you need time to practice and get it right. It may take you 5 tries, you may ruin a couple knives, it may take you only 1 or 2 tries, and you can chalk that up to just being a natural, which is pretty cool. So yeah, that's it. Just stay tuned. I'll show you guys what this thing looks like after it's been I suppose corroded away by the wing stress remover. Alrighty, so just want to show you guys a little update with what things are looking like at the moment. It still needs a little bit more time, not too far off here from the point where we can go ahead, do a little inspection, clean everything off with some warm soapy water, do some light sanding, but I want to show you just the progress of it. From the last clip until now, it's taken over an hour, and that is because I shouldn't even be freaking touching it like an idiot. Get some pliers over here. The wings rust remover, it kind of gets old, right? So it kind of wears itself out after using it for a while. But as you can see, yeah, all the color is nearly gone, and it's turned into like this kind of like sand blasted finish. That's what it looks like. You can anodize it as is, just like that, but it gives kind of a, I don't like the colors that come off of it. As you can see, there's still some of the pattern left over, so we're gonna leave it in for a little bit longer. But yeah, the wings rust remover, it takes a while. It takes a while after you've been using the same liquid, you know, over and over again for multiple projects. In the time that I was waiting, I've already decided, you know, the colors I'm gonna go with, and I have all my stuff already set up in the kitchen. Just, you know, a little, you know, container of like warm soapy water. I have my wet sandpaper. I use 2000 grit, 3000 grit wet sand, just cut into little pieces. I have a technique where I crumble and open multiple times, so that way I get kind of like a cloth of actual sanding. And here it is, let me show you. So these are about the size, right? This is a piece of 2000 grit. So my technique to get like into like the really fine little corners and stuff, so that way it's not super just, you know, harsh. I'm trying to think of the word. It's you guys know what I mean. Like this is nice and pliable and floppy. This is a little bit more rigid. So if I go and crumble it multiple times and I get it more to where it's like this, for example, I have this right here. It's easier to just kind of like, you know, rub areas all over, you know, and just kind of like do a little bit of fine tuning, focus on some of the areas that need a little bit more consistent sanding. And that's really one of my little techniques, I suppose you can call it, a little trick that I do. But that's just, of course, a step. And as long as everything goes perfectly fine, then we, of course, will then be able to move on to actual anodizing. And I have all my stuff set up over here off to the side. I don't want to move the tripod around, but I have my negative and positive leads. This is the solution that it's going to be submerged in. This is just water and borax. Down here at the bottom, this is just sediment. These are just solidified borax crystals. It's just because this solution is so heavily saturated in borax that as it settles, the borax actually starts to form crystals. So you can throw these out if you want or keep them. It's not going to do anything, absolutely nothing, if these come in contact with your skin or the piece of titanium that you're working on. So this is essentially just trash. It doesn't matter if you take these out and throw them away, it's whatever. You can redissolve them later if you want, but that's the junk that's at the bottom essentially. But the solution is oversaturated, just to make sure, just in case. But this will stick here on the side. I'll attach the negative lead to that. The positive lead will be on a piece of titanium wire, and then we'll go ahead and that'll be anodizing. And then you'll see the color change and all the cool stuff. We'll be right back. Alrighty, so these have been cleaned, sanded, and cleaned again. And at this point, it is really, really important to not get any sorts of oils. Don't pick your fucking nose. Don't rub your face. Don't play with your hair. Don't touch your animals. I've been through all of that and learned all that the hard way. On my way back to the garage from inside the house, my cat runs by. I grab her, you know, play with her, and I have a piece of titanium in my hand. I go to anodize. Oh, now I have weird cat dust oil on my piece that I'm trying to anodize. Now it came out looking like shit. So we're just gonna go through and I'll show you guys. This is just a little bit of water left over, but this is how it looks so far. So as you can see, there is still the really faint little leftover design from the previous modification on it, but all the edges are very nice and consistent. Even the inside was given a little bit of a polish as well, same as the other side. There is the pivot. And I actually had it inset while I was doing the sanding and everything. And of course it has this nice little polish. The knife would look good just like this, it'd be just fine. But this is the fun part. Now we get the power supply out, we go ahead and set it, submerge it into the water and borax solution, and watch the color change. So we're gonna do that in a sec. I just want to show you what all these pieces look like. So remember how these used to be really shiny, now they're kind of like this like sand blasted kind of look. I nearly shat my heart out when I picked this up and unscrewed it, because one of the pieces fell on my kitchen floor. I went ahead and washed it again in soapy warm water, because these are tiny little studs and one of them just went flying. So, and then these are the screws. Of course, they were a satin polish finish originally. Now again, they're this like sanded finish look. This piece right here, I am still not 100% sure if this is actually titanium, because it didn't really react the same way as all the other pieces. I don't think it is, honestly, but it's not a big deal. Not a big deal. But I'm going to go ahead and see if it actually does anodize, but that'll be a little bit later. The main part is the actual body. So I'm going to cut it really quick and show you guys everything all nicely set up. Alrighty, so everything is set up, power supply is on. The first color we're gonna go with, and it's going to be the main color of the dimples itself, is going to be a teal, and then I'm thinking about doing a high voltage purple over it. I just want to see how well those two colors mix. If everything works out well, which it usually never does, I may have to go and redo this later on, but we'll see how this goes. It's very rare that I get things the first time, but let's see what we can do with this. So teals, from what I know, is usually between 80, 85. So we can go ahead and see what 84, what is this? Okay, is the power supplies is a little sensitive. Okay, so it's at 84.12. At this point, we can go and grab, let's do the scales first. Let's actually sandwich them together. And then we have to wrap around the titanium wire over the actual pivot pieces separately. So we can do these together, it's not a big deal. Make sure to have it submerged into the new liquid, and then we can go ahead and apply the alligator clip to let the current flow and do its job. Oh, okay, hold on. Hold on, let me not blow myself up. Alright, don't touch it. There we go. You can see all those beautiful colors. Yeah. That was weird. Oh, whatever. Okay, these are the high voltage purples, and then it'll start turning blue. And this isn't like a super instant process. It takes a second for everything to truly settle out. Even when you think it's done, if you leave it in for another like 30 seconds or so, it can still be a slightly different hue. So you got to make sure to watch the numbers and make sure they just don't fluctuate that much more. At this point in time, you shouldn't really be seeing any sort of sparks or smelling anything. That little spark from earlier, not too sure why that happened, but it did. So right now it looks like it's the early blues to possible greens. I know I'm kind of at a funky angle here. Definitely don't touch that over there. looks pretty cool. Yeah, yeah. So at this point, I'm actually going to take them out, dry them off. Once they are dry, they could be a slightly different color, but because I'm having to take them out and re-dip and everything, I'm gonna go ahead and hit the pivot pieces because it's supposed to be all one continuous color without any difference in hue of anything. So these have been soaking long enough. That should be it. That's pretty freaking sick, even on its own, but I think we could do something even cooler with this. So if not, you know, it's not that crazy of a process to go and, you know, re-sand and polish and get a fresh finish again. So let's get some paper towel. These things definitely hold on to a lot of moisture. It's a beautiful color. Honestly, like I'm kind of afraid of messing with it at this point. Just let them kind of air dry a little bit. Damn, that's freaking beautiful. So, holy shit. It's not coming on camera too well. Well, maybe it is a little bit. Look at those dimples. Jesus. Wow. You know what? No, I'm gonna leave this just as is. The sheen is high voltage purple, but because of the finish of the actual dimpling itself, oh my god, this is freaking beautiful. Well, there you go. So maybe I do get it every once in a while. That is super nice. Holy crap. It came out really consistent. Now, we're not done yet. We still got to get the same color on the pivot faces. But that is just freaking beautiful. Nice and consistent, no weird marks. Liner axis looks good. They're not 100% dry yet, but you get the idea. That is freaking beautiful. Okay, cool. Let's get those out of the way now. Oh, crap. Kick the tripod. Okay, we're good. So, what I'm going to do with these guys, this one, the actual pivot there, I can just screw them together. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to screw them together. And then I'm going to, don't roll away from me, kind of wind this up to make a coil. String this through the coil. Just like that. Nothing super crazy, and that didn't work at all. Okay. Come on. Get through there. Just kind of tighten up that coil. Okay, it's sitting there. It's good. It's good. Make sure to get this nice and saturated. I can go ahead and connect the lead. Maybe me touching it, you know, did something to it, but whatever. Grab it. You can see the color change a little more rapid here. It happened really fast. Damn, I just can't get over how good that looks. Holy crap. Now that it's almost completely dry, just look at that. It's freaking gorgeous. Okay. Let's sit for a little bit. I was thinking about doing the pieces separately, but I was like, dude, what are you doing? Just screw them together. They'll anodize the same without any sort of possible inconsistency with hue. A little more. Now these pieces did receive a little less time sanding, so I hope, praying right now that that doesn't have much of an impact in the end result, but the numbers, they're staying. It's done. Go ahead and disconnect everything. just for safety's sake, turn the power supply off. At this point, you can take off your PPE, gloves, goggles, put everything away. Just kind of move things off to the side. Don't want water, electricity, you know, mixing too often, so it's a little sketchy, Go ahead and dry that off. And I have a can of compressed air off to the side. I'm looking at these pieces. Honestly, I think they are a little bit different in hue, so we'll see. But let me get a can of compressed air, shoot these guys a little bit. Okay, let's see how these look on their respective sides. Damn, okay. There is a difference in hue. That's my fault. This one, not so much. You can see the actual purple versus blue. Same thing with this one. A little bit, see how the grid, or the dimpling pattern, it's purple and it's blue over here. That's because I didn't sand it long enough. Not a big deal at all. I'm gonna go ahead and just sand these as they are and just hit it again at the same power range, voltage. Okay, so I just sanded it and ran it through again. For whatever reason, I'm not able to get more of a purple hue, but it should be fine the way it is. It's not that big of a difference. In reality, it's hardly noticeable until you really point it out. I think I did get the slightest bit of purple hue in it, but it's not bad. Not bad at all. Take a look at that. So only in certain lights will you see the tiniest bit of difference. I'm just being super freaking picky. This piece, same thing. It's a little bit more of a blue hue than the rest of it. But yeah, I'd say this was definitely a success. So now I'm gonna mess with the other pieces and see what we can do with those. I'm thinking about probably just bronze. Honestly, the finish that the Winx Rust Remover leaves on high grade titanium, which is what this is, it's a really nice finish, and in small quantities, a bronze will help to kind of, bring this overall color palette together. Yeah, of course that's just in my opinion, but I have had a couple projects in the past where I like the vibrant, but then of course accent pieces to help kind of mellow out the overall design. So I'm gonna go ahead and see if I can do that to the hardware, the backspacer, and the studs, and then I will show you guys how to do my acid stone washing. I'm going to do my best to do a dark wash to where I don't do the heavy scratches, but still a consistent scratch pattern, just more on the darker side. So that's kind of the way I want to, I guess, phrase it. A little weird, I know, but you guys will see. Okay, so for the studs, body screw, and the backspacer piece, which was titanium, which is pretty cool, I went with this. It's a bronze, but it's the farthest spectrum of the bronze before the low voltage purple start to come in. I think it gives a nice worn, kind of tarnished looking piece look, and it will definitely help to kind of subdue the crazy pop of colors that the pivots and the main scales are. So what I have right now, it's at 15.42, so if you want to do a similar color, that's what it's at right now. Everything's connected. This is just sitting in a little, this thing right here. And all I gotta do is just touch the pieces. I think it's only like the second time I've done it like this, but I'm gonna go ahead and connect that, and if you touch it, start to change. There, you see that? Come on, focus, please focus. There we go. That's cool. That's cool. I like it a lot. If the pieces all touch each other, they will then transfer all the current. So they're not too far off. Still changing a little bit. Try to poke that little bubble. You see that bubble that popped out of the screw? That little bubble actually prevents liquid from going into the face of the actual screw and keeps the anodizing process from taking place. So if you pop that little bubble inside of the screw face, it'll be nice and consistent. But yeah, everything should be good now. So turn everything off, disconnect everything. Make sure to get that out of the way. Take this out of here. And these should be good to go. This knife was actually really fun to work on, and I think it's just because of the grade and the quality of the titanium. It does make a difference. Not too much of a difference, but it does. The colors stay a little truer to color charts and things like that. So please focus. Okay, so those are the studs. They're not completely dry yet. Let's look at these screw faces. Kind of blow on them a little bit. Yeah, they're like the bronzy purple kind of look. So that'll help to kind of mellow out the overall, you know, color palette of the knife. Now we're going to work on the blade, and this is something that is quite important. It get a little tedious, can take some time for sure, and you're also going to get a workout. So all right, so you got to make sure that the actual blade itself is extremely clean. No oils. If you want to go ahead and take it to the sink for some, you know, soapy warm water, go ahead and do that. Make sure it's well dried off afterwards. You need nail polish or something to prevent now the ferrochloric acid to from actually eating away the surface of the blade. So there's a nice little, you know, consistent stone polish that's on it right now, and it looks nice, but I want to, you know, really fully modify this thing to the best of my abilities. So you want to focus on really important spots, like any places where a stop pin or a lock face will come in contact with. I believe that's where the stop pin hits. So we can go ahead and brush that. Just lightly, it doesn't have to be anything crazy, it doesn't have to be globbed on there. I'm gonna leave that detent ramp alone. But you gotta make sure to do the actual tang face itself. You don't want any more movement in that up and down play. That you don't want to add to it, essentially. That's where I'm trying to get at. So again, nothing crazy. It's not really important there. No contact points in the back. Right there is the detent hole, and of course we have the pivot. We're going to use the nail brush for the actual pivot. Just swirl it around in there. You don't want to have any sort of pivot lash, just in case, because if you remove material from the blade itself, the pivot, and we had left the titanium scales in acid to remove more material from those parts of the pivot, then that's twice as much of the material that you've lost on a really, really small scale. But when it comes to, you know, precise instruments as these are, you know, the way that they machine these knives, Tactile Knife Co., or just Tactile Knife, that may make a difference, and I don't want to risk it. So And then what we'll do so we don't get, oh, I still need this actually. What we'll do so we don't get any of the nail polish anywhere else, I'm actually going to use the very tip of this piece of wire and actually apply it into that detent hole. I don't want to get any like around it, because then it'll create kind of like a little mound. Even then I still need less than that. It's kind of hard to see, but see how through surface tension it's kind of clinging on the tip of that. I want even less. So this stuff goes a long way. Just want to get through there, and because it is a hole, it's nice. I do definitely appreciate that the detent is actually just a straight hole milled all the way through, just the one time, and we should be good, nice and clean on both sides. The space for the bearings, I'm gonna leave that alone. The space for the detent ball to run its course again, I'm gonna leave that, I'm gonna leave that alone. At this point, I'm gonna let it dry. I'm not gonna mess with it. Don't mess with it. After it's done drying, I'm gonna go ahead, take out the ferrochloric acid and dip it. This is where you need to have a little container of water and borax solution as a neutralizing liquid, to just have it in there to make sure that it stops eating the material, the actual blade steel itself. You can go to the sink, you scrub it off, you inspect it to make sure that the acid is very consistent looking, and only then can we go and do the stone tumbling, shaking, whatever. Alrighty, so I face the camera this way just so I can show you guys the motion of everything that needs to happen. So after the nail polish has cured on the important contact points of the blade, you would then go ahead and put it in some ferrochloric acid. This is at full strength, or full whatever, you know what I mean. Leave it in there for maybe a minute. You can leave it in there for 30 seconds if you don't feel comfortable, but one important thing to have nearby and ready is a little container with water and some borax in it. So this is going to neutralize the ferrochloric acid that is all over the blade. So once you dip it in there, swirl it around, make sure to knock off as much of the sediment as much as possible. At this point, this is what kind of takes me a long time, because I have to go back inside the house, scrub it in the sink, make sure that the acid has properly eaten away the whole surface. And you guys have seen my finish. I think I've got it down pretty darn good. So this is on the Assault team from Monocala Knives. So it's dark. It's on the darker side. What I would consider a dark wash is what I'm trying to achieve. It's basically a step above a regular stone wash. So with a stone wash, the process would be putting in acid to acid etch it, making it all dull and all like gray, like dark gray looking. And then you go and tumble it into something like this. Now, the blade's already in there because I threw it in there like an idiot. I'm actually re-recording this part. But what's in here is the important part. The container is nothing fancy. It doesn't have to be round. It just needs to be able to be large enough to have some area for movement, for circulation of the media that's in here. What's in here is really fine powdered aluminum oxide. There is a butt ton of WD-40. There is aquarium sand and aquarium gravel. So when you see a lot of other people doing stonewash finishes on blades, most of them use large stones, medium to large stones, in an even larger container than this. But what happens with that is that the larger stones will create larger gashes all over the blade, and it'll look like shit. And it takes longer, and you get more inconsistencies. What I found, what works for me, and clearly I've done it many times, and it comes out very consistent. I'm happy with the finish. I know a lot of people want to know how to do this. It's very simple, but it's what you start with. And taking your time on this really does make a difference, where you're gonna have to keep pulling the blade out of the container, checking it, rinsing it, washing it, just to make sure that the pattern is to your specific liking. Again, I want to achieve a dark wash, so what I'm gonna do is I'm going to get a super heavy scratch pattern, very fine scratches, and then I'm going to re-submerge it into the ferrochloric acid once more, just to kind of dull out those scratches a little bit, just a little bit. And what that's going to do is then create a darker overall blade, and that's what I call a dark wash. So hopefully that makes sense. But really, the motion of this container is, and again, it doesn't matter if it's round or squared or whatever kind of shape, as long as it has enough room to travel and circulate. So basically, this is going to be like the side view. You're going to be doing this, and you're hearing all the media hitting the blade and knocking around and creating scratches in all different types of organic directions, which create the scratch pattern. And this is where you get the workout, and you get to work on your shoulders. So and you're just going to keep doing that for, I mean, I've gone as long as like 10 minutes, but I take like, I'll do it for like 2-3 minutes at a time, then give it a break, go wash it, check it, put it back in if I want more scratches. Sometimes with some blades, for whatever reason, I'm able to get it faster. Some take longer. This is a short, longer blade, so this may be pretty quick. I don't know, but I'm gonna cut the video here. What you guys will see next is the knife, hopefully, all assembled, all cleaned, with a fresh edge, and ready to go back to work-knife balance. And hopefully it'll be back to him sometime this week. But yeah, that's what you guys are gonna see next. All right, so after an hour of reprofiling and sharpening and reassembling as clean as I possibly can to make sure no scuff marks or nothing, and 2 days later from the last clip, actually, because my wonderful wife decided to have me, you know, be a responsible man and actually clean and be a part of this household instead of just working on knives all the time. Anyway, we're done. This came out freaking sick. It is absolutely beautiful. I will most likely be posting this after Work Knife Balance sees it. I'm gonna ask him if he wants me to send him a picture or he wants to have his full, actual, genuine response in camera. I think he's probably gonna want to do it on camera. I don't know. That's up to him. It doesn't matter. All right, a minute in, almost. Let's get this thing out. Just take a look at that. So the studs anodized to the farthest end of bronze to where purple starts to kind of creep in a little bit. Same thing with the back spacer, the body screws. The clip is steel, so I torched it and I was able to get a very similar look. Once you torch steel, it's bronze, and then the purple started to come, and then blue, very similar to the first, you know, a little bit of the color spectrum of titanium. And so I was able to get a match. I held the torch a little bit too long right there at the tip, but I think it gives it a little bit of character. And the sheen on the clip is purple to match, which I couldn't have asked for a better accident, honestly. But let's get this out. So here is the dark wash. The scratches do look a little bit reflective, but I promise you it did re-submerge it into the ferrochloric acid to darken it a little bit. They're usually a little bit more reflective and lighter. That's kind of what I prefer, I guess. And it's also a little bit, it takes longer just to do this process over again. I sharpened the edge on my wicked edge. It's at, I believe, 18 degrees, which is not too bad for such a small, short knife. And yeah, it shaves, which is freaking awesome. So check this out. Hairs just pop. So that's pretty cool. Work knife balance. I hope you don't mind my arm pubes on your knife. And yeah, it cuts paper really, really well. A beautiful, beautiful, clean and consistent sound. It is just incredible. This was a really fun project to work on. Pretty nice knife to work on overall. Is it for me, the design? Not so much. There's a couple little things that I had, issues with. It was mainly the lock bar access and the finickiness of the actual lock bar. But I've gotten this to the point where it has the least amount of up and down and the detent suitable right before the flesh of your thumb actually comes off. So yeah, it's definitely possible. I don't have super crazy durable working man hands. I mean, kind of a little bit, but you're not going to be reverse flicking this thing, at least not anytime soon. Of course, the bearings and the detent ball need to wear its way past the acid and the scratches. But yeah, everything is nice and solid. One thing I do want to mention before I pack it up and ship it, the pivot is the only piece that I put blue Loctite on, because after like 10 flicks, it starts to back out. And I did my absolute best to match up the holes of the milling, the golf ball pattern, and it actually spun on me a little bit. So I can go ahead and just tiniest little, all the little details matter. So at least to me it does. One thing that I'm gonna point out myself, it's definitely absolutely my fault and part of my sharpener's fault, is mainly because of the plunge grind and the way that the knife is actually ground from the factory. I did creep up a little bit just to be able to hit all the way here and lay the edge back. On this side it's not too much, but because of the rather dark background of the dark wash, the very high reflective edge will definitely peek through a little bit. So that's just something that I want to be transparent about. That was me, but also because of how the blade was ground. But yeah, as you can see, this thing is still very easy to get out. The liner access is, again, it's not the greatest, but you can definitely get used to it. And that's it. Work knife balance, thank you so much, dude. This was really fun to work on. It took a lot longer to finish it up than I wanted to, and I hope you haven't been missing this too much in the time that it's been over here in California. But it'll be on your way soon. I'll be messaging you soon. If you guys like this video, please go ahead and leave a like down below. Let me know if you want to see more content like this. Eventually I want to do a sharpening top and side like view, things like that. If you are subscribed, thank you so much. I appreciate all your support and your patience, of course. If you are not subscribed, please consider subscribing, because I play more videos and content coming your guys' way. And with that being said, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.